shine on Happy Camper Life. We're loving, living, and learning online on Happy Camper Life.
Hello, Happy Campers. This is Allison Miller, the CEO and founder of Happy Camper Live, and I'm your host today on the Happy Camper Live podcast, Raising a Happy Camper. And we're here today with Sandy Schwartz. She is the founder and director of the Eco Happiness Project. Sandy, how are you doing today?
Great, and we're neighbors, so we're not that far away from each other.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. We're camp friends too. Now that we know each other, I consider us camp friends, right?
Yes, totally.
Awesome. So Sandy, can you just tell the audience a little bit about yourself? You have such a great background. I'm so excited to have you.
Yeah, so I created this Eco Happiness Project and the whole concept of it really to address my own stress and anxiety originally, because going back to when I was a kid, I also struggled with it, and then kind of hit hard after I had my first son. And so I'm also a writer and I love researching and writing. So I started diving into, this journey of self-discovery and researching, how can I feel better, to address my own, anxiety. And I discovered the world of positive psychology, which includes practices like mindfulness and spreading kindness, volunteer work, and of course, having the sense of awe and of nature, being outside and all that. And I actually was an environmental studies major, and that's how I started my career. So I merged together my career and education focus with my own personal need. And then I realized that I could share this, with others. And I consider, this concept of, the blog posts I write about and the articles, and then also the book that ended up coming out of all this research really is like the handbook that I wish my parents had for me as a kid. So I'm really here to share the information with other parents, and it really benefits all of us at all ages.
That's awesome. So you mentioned the book. So Eco Happiness, it's coming out May 3rd, which is today. So we're super excited for you to be on our show. And tell me about the book. I know it's just like you said, you took all of this experience that you had and things that you wish you had known as a child and early on as a parent, and put this together to bring out to the world. So tell us about it.
Yeah, so it's called Finding Eco Happiness, Fun Nature Activities to Help Your Kids Feel Happier and Calmer. And so on one hand, it dives into the science behind why nature helps us with our mental health and emotional well-being, but it's also filled with so many activities, like simple activities, everything, and it ranges, right, in scope. It's everything from literally like looking at a computer screen with nature on it, to virtual reality, to, your own backyard or balcony, to really immersing yourself like with overnight camp or some other sort of ecotourism adventure. So it's from every level of experience and interest, and it's really, a toolkit for people to choose to build their own nature habit, for their family.
That's great. So somebody is able to use this as a resource all the time, right? That I got a little sneak preview, so I'm excited to have read some of the book, and I'll get my full copy. That I see that you cover so many different areas. You talk about anything from, things that we would think about, like biking, right? Or just going on hikes and things like that. And then you really expand that into water sports and even go into talking about going away to camp. So tell me how you put the whole book together. That's a very broad range of experiences that you're, exploring. Sports too, right?
Yes. And so this all started, I think I mentioned earlier, as, I was a freelance, or I still am, but a freelance writer and blogger. And so I was writing these little bits and pieces. And one day it occurred to me that I could really pull this all together, and that it didn't exist. Okay. There's plenty of, other parenting books. There's even nature parenting books, but none of them really focus specifically on the mental health piece. And then there's also all these resources that, there's a book called Blue Mind, which is a whole entire pretty thick book on just the benefits of water, being around the water. So I felt like my job as a journalist and a writer was to pull together all of the amazing work that others were doing and then organize it, in a way that can be this toolkit for families. And I broke it down to topics like mindfulness, gratitude, creative arts. That was really fun to really, to realize the benefits of creative arts, but then combining it with nature is even more beneficial to us.
Okay, that's where I want to start. All right,
Okay.
creative arts, nature, you just like, that's my love, all right? So tell me a little bit, give us a little sneak preview into that chapter.
Right. So, and I try to cover everything possible. Okay. Like from nature poetry walks and
Yeah.
writing haiku, with my kids, to one of my favorite things, which is watercolor painting, of nature. One of my big hobby is I go around, and take pictures, whether we're on vacation or on a walk. I love snapping photos of beautiful flowers and trees, and then painting it later. This is just sort of a hobby that I enjoyed, and it helped me, release my worries, because when you're engaged in a creative project, and the science, backs us all up, you're able to get lost in the moment, you focus, it's hard to look at something beautiful and still, be so concerned and worried about your own problems. So it allows you to escape. I even touched on dance.
Mm-hmm.
That was really fun. That was actually a little challenging to find anything out there. So I added a little bit of my own, creativity to it, and saying, there are these dances that we grow up as kids, that have to do with animals. So I said, do the chicken dance or do the bunny hop, create some theatrical movements like the tree blowing in the wind, all these ways that we can really tap into the concept of nature in a creative way.
That's really awesome. We do a lot of, look, with the summer camp background that I have, we try not to be stuck in any room at camp, and we want to go out into nature. So, a lot of it is to go collect things and to be able to, press leaves or create things out of clay, like for ceramics, and, be able to dig some clay. We have like rivers nearby where you can get red clay and different forms of clay and make, and just having your hands in the clay is just so much fun, and putting it all over, is fun too. So I see the creative arts as just such a important, part, extension of what we can do in nature. And I think sometimes you think you're inside doing that, but like you said, to go out and then to bring it back in to the home, or wherever you are, traveling even this summer in your car, right? Going on road trips, there's a lot you can gather on the way that can inspire you and connect you, when you're back home. And so that's great. What are some of the other areas that you focused on?
So, gratitude journals, that's an interesting topic. We hear a lot about around Thanksgiving time, but having a gratitude practice, this research shows, a daily gratitude practice can help ease stress and anxiety as well. So again, I looked at it through a nature lens, and I had written a general article on gratitude, like creative gratitude journals, like doing your own gratitude blog, or having a child kind of do it like they're hosting a news show, and saying, oh, today my top gratitude, practice, I'm grateful for X, Y, and Z. And so I really said, well, let's do it in a way that connects to nature. So focus on what in nature, what did you see today, or smell, or taste? It could be the food, right? It could be the tomato you had in your salad. That is still nature. I have a whole food chapter, because that's another thing. We think food, we don't realize that every day we're connecting to the earth and nature when we're eating. So to be, there's a whole mindful eating practice in there that I borrowed, from the expert in that area. The other thing I wanted to just jump back to the creativity and say that, a lot of times as parents, we think creative arts is just like busy time. And I don't think we realize, and I think this is what, I'm pointing out, is that the research shows how beneficial it is to our kids' mental health. So it's not just, have them color and be busy with it. It's like, give them, the flower to do the mindful coloring, and what a shift they could experience through that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one of the things I was thinking about, and I was thinking about this recently, maybe when we spoke, you know, getting ready for this podcast, but, you know, one of my favorite things to do as a kid was just to lie on the grass and stare at the clouds. And, you know, just the creativity that goes into like, what do you think it looks like? What do you think it looks like? And, you know, and then how quickly the clouds can change. And all of a sudden, you know, it's another, you know, vision. And I encourage kids in the camping world, you know, and I don't care what age they are, because I think part of, you know, what we need to do as adults and parents is just see that kids are kids, even if they're 13, 14, 15, you know, which is gets a little harder to inspire them by some of the, you know, activities that we think of. I do feel like they need this more than, you know, ever. And
Yes.
they're very receptive. And I was surprised, because I tried some of this at my camp last summer, how receptive the kids were. So I did some things with sound healing and taking the kids through like a sound journey with chimes and things like that, having them lay down outside in the grass. Also, like just the vibrations of the trees and understanding and teaching the kids about vibrations, I think is really cool and grounding, you know, so that, like you talked about this very early on. But I think that people tend to think more about little kids. And I want to really up that. I really, really want to up that, because having seen 14, 15-year-olds, you know, really connect, it works for you, right? You're saying these are practices that work for you. I know they work for me, and they're going to work with a teenager too. And I know they're a tough audience.
Well, and I think you're, like you said, it's actually the most important. You know, I just read a headline today that, you know, the teen anxiety and depression is just out of control. And I think part of it is, I mean, when we were kids, we did lay in the grass and look at the clouds, and we played in the backyard. And for some reason, well, there's lots of reasons, but our generation in raising kids, it's a different kind of world, culture. It's more crowded in a lot of places. And we just, so for them to actually stop and be mindful and have that experience is kind of a gem for them, because, you know, now they're constantly on screens. They're on screens all day at school. You know, even if we don't want them to be, that's what the curriculum requires. And so to stop and look up in the sky and say, oh my gosh, look at those clouds. It looks like Mickey Mouse, or it looks like a duck, or it really is so helpful to them. It's helpful. We know it's helpful to all of us at all ages. So we just have to kind of nudge it along a little bit with them.
Yeah,
nature photography, I mean, that's a great hobby, because that, you know, nature photography, they can do that with their iPhone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's true. And finding ways to relate nature to them at their age is important too. So when, you know, you have some suggestions, obviously in the book that range I mean, it's not about age, it's just about experience. So I think you need to just try some of these things with some of the older kids, and you'll be surprised, like I said, how much they relate to it. One of the things you talk about in the book is free play. And I just want to talk about that a little bit. We were talking to another guest about the rhythm of the day, and that at their summer camp, they don't call it like a structured periods, but it's like the rhythm, and how free play. I'm like a big Montessori mom fan, but how that really can support some of the things that you're communicating in the book.
Yeah. Well, again, it's something that, you know, I remember doing as a child back in the 80s, and it even kind of fell off toward the end of my elementary school age, when, you know, there were some more in the news about like kidnappings and stuff. Then all of a sudden parents, like, something changed. And, you know, I do talk about a whole list of barriers, you know, that we do have, you know, parents have to nature, whether it's these fears or where, you know, it could be fears of animals, fears of other humans, or traffic, or safety concerns. I mean, there's a lot out there. It could be as simple as the weather. And so when we really do boil it down, you know, and I've learned with my own anxieties that just because you hear one news story, that's not like what's common. And so it's actually more common for kids to be able to go play in the woods and they're okay. You know, they can, and they should be, you know, balancing on the log and climbing the tree and exploring freely. And yes, these kids today just aren't doing the free play. they grow up in a world where they're swiping like automatically. I mean, I saw it with my own daughter. I mean, it's impressive how technologically capable they are, but now we got to kind of step it back a little bit and get them outside. And I'm grateful they do go to overnight camp, so they get that break. But we need, we need to think about it becoming a habit in every day. And that could look like having a meal outside as a family in your backyard, taking the homework outside, making sure they go, like my son will go and play basketball, when he kind of needs that break. Take a walk, just make that time in your daily routine.
Yeah. And I think that what's great is that you cover the fact that it isn't easy for everybody to have that space outside, and how you can create that nature environment in the home. Because, we are fortunate, we live in warm weather, but not everybody does. And also not everybody has access. They might be in an apartment, they might be in a city. And so what are some of the ways that I know you talked about the computer, but if we were stepping back from the computer, what are some other ways that we can bring nature into the home? I think cooking was one of them that you mentioned.
Yeah, certainly having a garden in the backyard, or even, growing tomatoes or cucumbers or peppers in a pot, and it could be right there at the back door. So even if it's cold, you can quickly grab it, and cooking together. Of course, art projects. Mindfulness is a really great way, because the fact is that whether it's through like visualization, meditation, or listening to sounds on an app, one tip I have is when you do go to the ocean, or you're in a place that you're hearing lots of birds chirping, get your phone out and record it. And then later on, when someone's feeling a little anxious about a test, or they can't, get to sleep at night, play it. That bird song, and the research is amazing about how effective it is to calm us down. So, that's bringing the outdoors in at times when, you kind of need it.
It's funny you talk about recording. So my son's a musician, and one of the things that he does is he will record nature sounds and incorporate them into the music. And these days, kids have like a lot of access to recording apps and stuff like that. They're very GarageBand, like, there's things that are really accessible, and you could make an entire song out of just like one interesting like bird that won't stop, chirping outside your window, and you've got this really cool song. I have something, I think I showed you, but I keep this around, which is my little wind chime, which these are great. You can have them outside, right? But to have one in the house, it's just amazing. And we have a lot of different rain sticks and things like that. And you can put together a whole set, right? You can have your chimes, and then your thises, and then that. And what's really fun, we do this at camp, is that the kids can walk around with the instruments too. So I'll do a whole thing with them, and their eyes are closed, and I'll tell them, don't, just listen to the instruments. Don't peek, like don't try to figure out what they all are. And then after, I'll let you see them. And then it's really cool after, when they open their eyes and then I'm playing them, they're like, that's what that was. Oh my gosh, I thought that was the ocean. Oh, that sounded just like a bird. So you can have a lot of fun. And some of these things, the chimes and stuff, you can make yourself. Like you can make them out of like seashells and other things to, create a little musical sound bath for you and your family.
Well, what's interesting about that, it's a chime, so it's not nature, but it is nature, because that's how we interpret the wind. I mean, when you were playing that, I was just like thinking back to my childhood with the neighbor that had the wind chime next. You can't really hear the wind so much or see it, but that's how you hear it, by that instrument, that sound. So that's fascinating. I like that.
Yeah, really, really fun. So let's talk a little bit about camp, because that's definitely my little Happy Camper Live hat that I'm wearing here. And I know that, there is obviously, not everybody can go to summer camp, and I recognize that. There are a lot of advantages. So if you could sort of help parents, like, so if they can't send their kid to camp, what kind of structure, and maybe you and I can talk about this together, what kind of structure can a parent bring to their kids' summer that, you know,
Mhm.
will, you know, give them, you know, sort of that feeling of camp, you know, a little bit of camp each day, because, you know, that benefit, I believe, is structure. Like your book is
Mm,
filled with a
mm,
million amazing ideas. So, you know, maybe this is something I could put on Happy Camper Live, you know, a little scheduler, or you can help me with that, you know, but like, how can we put these things in place for the families that, where the kids can't go to camp, or they just are not at camp all summer? Maybe they go to camp for a week or two and then they're home. And, you know, we all know we don't want it to be a summer, you know, online or, you know, playing,
mhm,
you know,
mhm.
games.
Well, I think there's two ways to do that. So I'll start, we have our backyard and I'll get to that, but there's so many places just in a lot of local areas. I mean, even in the most urban of cities, you can find a local park or a local playground, a zoo, the arboretum, places that can allow kids to explore and connect to nature. The science museum, there's always, exhibits about nature. You can look up activities, and I know, budgets are an issue too. So it may be volunteer work.
Yeah.
Look at the city website or call them up and say, hey, do you have any, plantings going on that you need a volunteer? I mean, kids love planting, the seedlings, or helping in a community garden. So, you can be doing those kinds of activities. So local, easy local activities. You could even be doing, things in your own neighborhood, or like, for example, if you have a neighbor that's elderly or sick, and you can offer to take care of their dog, walk their dog, and that is getting kids out. They're learning responsibility. They're spending time with an animal. So there's all of that you can kind of just look at, in your local area, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. And there's always state parks and national parks as well, depending on where you are.
Mhm.
And then in the backyard and in your home, really the options are endless, especially when you look into the whole idea of both mindfulness and creative arts. Because with mindfulness, you can do an hour of backyard yoga, and then nap time. You can read books. Oh, the libraries. I have an entire blog post about nature-related activities at your local library. And so all of this is obviously free. They now rent out, a lot of libraries are renting out like science exploration backpacks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then of course they have great collections of all kinds of STEM or nature related books. So you could, and it doesn't have to feel like school, because it could be, let's
Wow.
read this book, and now let's let's say it's a beach cleanup book. So now let's go volunteer in our community, or let's do an art project, something fun, not necessarily, oh, we're going to sit down and read.
Wait, I got to go back to this. So you can wait. So you can go to the library and you can borrow a backpack that's complete, and it has, I mean, maybe I'm the last to know this, but I think this is really cool.
When your kids are older, because libraries now have like cake pans. You can go and borrow a cake pan in a flower shape. There's an activity, and you can bake a cake in the shape of a flower.
All right, I think I need to go on a tour of the library here. Maybe I just haven't been. Like, how long has that been?
5 years. Puzzles. Oh my gosh, I loved during pandemic time when we were kind of more locked up. I would go, but the library was open. I would go and get puzzles, and I always chose, of course, the nature related ones. But
okay, so I did the puzzles, but I didn't know you could get a backpack.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, I think being able to have those kind of resources and not have to spend the money to get all of that is fantastic. What about nighttime? Like just the whole study of the stars, and I'm not sure if you have that in the book, but that's like a big thing at summer camp, where you don't need to be at summer camp. You just need to be anywhere where you can look up, right?
Exactly. And you can get books on that and see if they can pick out the constellations, or use that app that you just pulled up.
Night sky.
You could, you could be writing poetry about the night sky. You can go out and try to listen for the different animal sounds and try to figure out what they are. You could do a camp out in the back, or eating outside, a evening, ice cream out back kind of thing. I mean, there's so many options.
What's really fun too is finding your spirit animal. I don't know if you've ever done that, but that's a great meditation, mindfulness / just like fun activity where you go on this meditative journey and it connects you like with your spirit animal. And so you find out who your spirit animal is. And then like you have that as a resource of like, when you find out your spirit animal, there's like a connection there, and you learn some things about yourself. And that's a really fun thing to do at night under the stars.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, I'm an owl, by the way. So yeah, so it's really fun. The kids really love to do that too. So yeah, oh my gosh, this is so fun. We could probably sit here for days and days. Oh, no. You could probably write a whole book about this, just what you did. So
well, I have to tell you, people say, oh, isn't it daunting to write a book? And, if you're not a writer, I imagine, but for me, it was such a great experience. That was my favorite part, was all the research, interviewing all these people, these experts. We didn't even touch on the fact that, kids who are struggling there's so much types of ecotherapy to tap into. And some of them are even, adventure based or camp kind of experiences where you're out in the wilderness. And so, there's a lot out there, again, for every level, from a computer screen, backyard to therapy. So
that's amazing. Well, I really thank you for whatever you put into this book, because there is going to be a lot of families, parents, kids that really benefit from it. And I'm really excited that you're here today. As
thank you.
It's the launch. So we're part of the launch here at Happy Camper Live. And, it's all about raising happy campers. And I want everybody to go out and go find Finding Eco Happiness.
Can I show a picture of it?
Yeah, I love the cover. Show it and tell us where you can find it.
Yeah, you can really find it anywhere books are sold. So if you're an Amazon fan, you can do that. Bookshop.org, IndieBound, Barnes & Noble, even places like Walmart.com, Target.com. So
it's everywhere. It's everywhere it needs to be, right?
Yeah, and if it's not at your local library yet, ask them for it, request it, and they'll order it for you.
Well, I'll do that when I'm going to check out the backpacks. I'll make sure that it's there.
Yeah.
They should put it in the backpack.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
I think so. That should be in every backpack with the library.
I'll add that to my list.
Yes, for sure. Well, I was super excited to be with you today, and I want to thank you, and good luck with the book. And did you have another book in the works? Are you thinking about the next one?
No, but I do have a children's book as well, Sky Search for Eco Happiness. So it kind of starts with the little girl feeling blue, and then she goes and experiences some of these outdoor activities to help her feel better. So it goes hand in hand together. So a great way to, get kids engaged with the discussion. Yeah.
I think that's really important though, Sandy. This isn't just a book of ideas. This is a book that's going to impact your kids. You're going to be able to see, if you really dive in and commit. That's why I was talking about a structure, really commit to some sort of structure around how to utilize the resources in this book. I feel like you're going to see a difference in your kids, and, be consistent with it and try different things. Like, you might try something and the kids are like, and then all of a sudden you're going to be really surprised that they connect with something that you never, ever thought they would. That's the beauty of summer camp. We just keep trying. We expose them to so many things. So, I think this is going to make a big difference, a big impact on our kids. And I thank you for taking the opportunity to put it all together for us and giving us a backpack full of, great information. So we'd love for you listeners to like us and subscribe to us on YouTube. You can find the Happy Camper Live podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any place else where podcasts are found. And Sandy, anything else for you before we go?
I just wanted to let everybody know they can, read all these blog posts and learn more information at ecohappinessproject.com.
Awesome. Well, definitely keep the blogs coming too, because that's great. It just never stop. You're doing great work. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Take a moment to shine.